Do you have issues understanding monopolistic competition as a market structure? Do you have problems drawing the short run and long run diagram and being able to explain them in terms of output and equilibriums? If so, stay tuned because these are some of the issues that we'll be going through today in this video. Hey guys, welcome to Progress Us. My name is Mohsin and the aim is to simplify economics. In today's video we're going to be looking at the market structure of monopolistic competition and how to essentially evaluate the market structure and compare it to monopoly and perfect competition. The starting point really is to understand the assumption. Now, monopolistic competition is essentially a hybrid market structure, a cross between both perfect competition and a monopoly. So the starting point really for students is to define the market structure. In this case, the market structure has really four main characteristics. Two are from perfect competition in terms of the similarities, and two are from monopolies in terms of their similarities. The assumptions or the characteristics that we talk about are the following. So in monopolistic competition, there are a large number of buyers and sellers. There are no barriers to entry or exit, or there may be some low barriers to entry or exit. This makes it easier for firms to enter the market. Okay. As you notice, the first two are very similar to the assumptions in perfect competition. Firms look to profit maximize, just like all market structures. The firms are looking to profit maximize. And the final characteristic, which is probably the most important one, is firms in this market structure look to differentiate their products. And this is really important to understand because it defines the diagram that you're going to draw and the ability of firms in this market to essentially be price makers. They have the ability to set the price as they have a degree of control over their products due to the fact that they're differentiated. Okay, what we're going to do now is draw the diagram. Now it's important to understand that this diagram is essentially a diagram that shows supernormal profits, and firms do make supernormal profits in monopolistic competition in the short run. One key aspect of this, however, is to make sure that when you're drawing the diagram for monopolistic competition, that you draw your demand curve slightly more elastic. So what we mean by that is that you want your AR curve to be a bit more elastic, and of course the MR curve will be twice as steep. And the reason we draw them more elastic essentially is because the firms in this market do product differentiate. This differentiation is only slightly changed from the original product, which basically means that there are still close substitutes available for consumers. Therefore, if firms look to raise the price, they lose revenue, as you know from elastic curves. And even though firms do have price setting power, they wouldn't set the prices too high, as this will encourage consumers to look elsewhere for close alternatives. What we do now is we introduce our cost curves as normal. So you draw in your average cost curve, okay, and also your marginal cost curve, which crosses your average cost curve at its lowest point, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, the point of profit maximization, which is just over here. Okay, this is where MC equals MR, which is your production point. At this point, all you have to do is carry out your equilibrium points now. So we bring this point down to our output, Q, we take it up to our demand curve, we get P, which gives us our total revenue, but of course we're interested in profit rather than revenue, and therefore we take our profit maximization point down to the cost curve, which is just there, okay, and we bring that across to establish the firm's cost, which is C1. That then therefore highlights the rectangle box just over here, which means we establish super normal profits. Therefore, you've just established the equilibrium price and output in the short run for a monopolistic firm, showing that firms can charge a high price or they can restrict output as well. In fact, sometimes firms in monopolistic competition do restrict output in order to profit maximize. The reason they do this is because they haven't fully utilized economies of scale. If they restrict output, economies of scale sometimes hasn't been fully exploited, and therefore their cost of production will generally be higher, and then they will charge a higher price. We're now going to look at monopolistic competition in the long run and what happens in the long run to this market structure. Because we know there are a large number of buyers and sellers, and that there are no barriers to entry, just like perfect competition, supernormal profits acts as an incentive for other firms to enter the market. Because there are a large number of buyers and sellers and there are no barriers to entry or exit, other firms see that supernormal profits in the short run as a price signal and now look to come into the market. Now, this is a bit different to perfect competition in the sense that in perfect competition, the supply curve shifts to the right, causing a new lower market equilibrium price. In monopolistic competition, as firms enter the market, they slightly product differentiate, which means that the existing demand for the product already in the market starts to fall. So rather than focusing on market supply as we would in perfect competition, in monopolistic competition, what we say is the demand curves, the revenue curves in our case, average revenue and marginal revenue, start shifting to the left as the demand for the existing product starts to fall. Okay? And so it will keep shifting to the left until it becomes tangential with the AC curve, essentially meaning that normal profits are made in the long run. The way you should draw this diagram so that you essentially get it right is by drawing your demand curves first. So again, and make sure it's elastic. Your AR curve, average revenue, MR curve is twice as steep. Okay? I would then next draw in my marginal cost curve. Now the reason is because you still have to show profit maximization, because that's what this firm is going to produce. Monopolistic competition still looks to profit max. So we know that that's going to be our output point of Q1. Okay? And we could take this up to the price also. Now the difference here is that what we need to make sure now is our AC curve is tangential to this point, so that essentially our price equals our cost. So therefore we would make a normal profit. And the way to do that is take your AC curve through, but also following the rule that the lowest part of the AC curve must touch or cross the marginal cost curve. So it can be sometimes difficult doing this, but if you just take your time, okay, bring the AC curve in, tangential, lowest part, and then back through again. In the long run, monopolistic firms are only able to make normal profits, just like in perfect competition, due to the fact that the assumptions, the characteristics say that there are a large number of buyers and sellers that can enter the market and there are no barriers to entry. Because in the short run, firms make supernormal profits, this acts as an incentive, just like in perfect competition, for firms to enter the market, which they do. But in this instance, they slightly product differentiate as they enter the market, causing the existing AR and MR curves to shift to the left until they become tangential with the AC curve. If we look at the efficiencies, there is no dynamic efficiency, okay? Because you have to have supernormal profits to have dynamic efficiency. Productive efficiency, is this firm producing the lowest part of its AC curve? Well, the answer is not quite, okay? So it's not productively efficient. Is it allocatively efficient? Is it producing at a point where the price is equal to the marginal cost? Well, if you look at the price, that's not on the marginal cost curve. You can see the distance. Therefore, it is not allocatively efficient. And that's a huge difference to the long run implication of perfect competition, where actually the firms are productively and allocatively efficient, and therefore generally the prices are lower in that market structure. Monopolistic firms would argue that they do still product differentiate and therefore they can charge a higher price. It's important to understand that when new firms enter the market, they can only product differentiate to a certain amount. There's only so much you can do when you're differentiating the similar product. Or the life cycle of differentiation will come to an end, and when it does come to an end, generally that's where normal profits are made, because there's not much more you can do to change the product. Okay, so there's no incentive now to innovate or to look to invest money into differentiation. Because the key issue with the innovation is that firms get apprehensive about investing money due to the fact that there are no barriers to entry. And because there are no barriers to entry or exit, if you're spending a lot of money on innovation and research and development, sometimes that money can get lost in the fact that other firms enter the market. So these are all important issues to establish monopolistic competition. If you remember them and you follow the simple rules here, it's actually a really straightforward 25-mark essay question. The evaluation, if you need it, is to talk about the efficiencies in the short run and long run. In the short run, you can argue there is dynamic efficiency because of supernormal profits, and firms would probably look to invest the money into research and innovation. But like I said, most firms probably wouldn't do that just due to the fact that there's low barriers to entry. Making comparisons with Perfect and Monopoly is always the way to go, because that will really give your answers much more depth. I hope that helped. There will be more videos to come on different market structures, and please do subscribe.